Hi, everyone. Um, I'm going to do a quick video. This will cover what we are going to talk about in class today. We're going to discuss an aspect of the humanities that underscores a lot of how we look at art, how art is created, all of those things, and that is through morality. This idea of right and wrong, how's the ethical way of acting? And I'm going to illustrate it both to show how it impacts art, both classic art and current art, and because I think it gives a pretty clear example by illustrating it with examples from a television series called The Good Place. Okay. So before we get started, a quick example, a summary of The Good Place. This was a 5 season, I think, series that ran on CBS or ABC. It was created by Michael Schur, who originally did The Office and Parks and Rec. So he was given this opportunity to do whatever he wanted. It was NBC. Um, it was NBC. And NBC came to him and said, you can do whatever you want. Just we trust you. Your last two series have been a hit. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to create a TV show that has to do with moral philosophy. And that's what he did. So the underscore of this entire series is from moral philosophy. It follows Eleanor Shellstrop, who's our lead character, as she dies and wakes up in the afterlife. And she's told she's in the good place. However, she realizes she thinks she's been confused with another Eleanor Shellstrop, and she has not led a very good life. She's very selfish, very not worried about other people at all, kind of mean girl type thing. Overall, she starts freaking out, and she starts trying to talk to her supposed soulmate, Chidi, saying, please teach me right and wrong. Please teach me how to be a good person. Overall, they meet friends, Tahani and Jason, and they slowly learn that they're actually in the bad place. That none of them led a moral, upstanding life. Even though Chidi was a moral philosophy professor, he also had behaviors that led to suffering in the world, things like this. Over time, they realize that Michael, the architect, was harmful. He's actually a demon. But then he reboots this experiment, reboots it to try to like punish them. And over time, he realizes, you know what? I don't want to be mean anymore. And the show ends with them realizing that the system on Earth is not working, and you can just earn your way in somewhere with just good points and not earn it with bad points. Where you get to go to the good place by doing good things. You get sent to the bad place if you do more bad things, that kind of thing. Every action has a point system. We'll talk about that later. And they have to revamp and create a new system. So that's the underscore. And we're going to do some examples today. I'm going to talk about different aspects of philosophy, and I'm going to use some aspects from the show to kind of sum it up. It's a really good show. If you can find it streaming, it's beautiful. It has a wonderful ending. Most shows I'm not happy with finales. I get picky. This one has a pretty good one. So anyway, with moral philosophy, philosophy is concerned with how we think, learning how people think, how we process the world, all of that. Moral philosophy comes from our ethical and moral choices, how humans decide and think about things like what is right and what is wrong. How do we decide what's right in the moment and what's wrong? Is it because of what we're taught? Is it because of our context? Is it because of our faith or other moral systems? Does the end justify the means? Are we just concerned with the result? And do we do anything? And does it matter how we get there? Um, does context play into right and wrong? Um, how do we decide if something is right? How do we decide if something is wrong? Who taught us? That kind of thing. Is it just to avoid punishment that makes us do the right thing or prevents us from doing wrong? How do we decide if the needs of society outweigh the needs of the individual? How do we decide when to intervene for an individual? Who should control our economic systems? Communities, those in power, individuals? Do our intentions matter or just our results? If we have negative intentions, but something good happens, is that okay? If we have positive intentions, but something bad happens, is that okay? And how do I decide the balance between what makes me happy and what makes others happy? If maybe what makes me happy may not make someone else happy. So if you see over here, the first image has Eleanor trying to learn ethics from Chidi, and she's saying, why should we be listening to this? Who left Aristotle in charge? He's like going back over these lessons. He's like, this is what happened. Later on in the series, she's really sad, and Michael, who has decided he doesn't want to be a demon anymore, says that, yeah, it's okay if you fail, but you try something else, you fail again, and you keep failing, but maybe the 1001st idea might work. In other words, that's kind of what makes us human, the fact that we keep trying. So philosophy is concerned with these answers, and there's all different schools. There's no one right or wrong answer. Philosophy is less concerned with what the answer is than how we get there, for the most part. So we'll talk about some different schools of thought, different types of philosophy, how they come into play. First thing we're going to talk about is utilitarianism and the risks of it. So Jeremy Bentham came up with utilitarianism by using mathematics to decide morality. I'm going to look at numbers and I'm going to decide what's right and wrong. Instead of just having saying self-interest is bad and restricting self-interest is good, he said there's a balance. But the goal for utilitarianists, is that you want to do the maximum good for the maximum number of people without violating the rights of others. So doing something like an accessible crosswalk may not be the best for everyone. It only helps those people that really need it, but it does, because it still doesn't violate the rights of people who need that accessible crosswalk. Then that's still a utilitarianist would say that's still the moral choice. However, the risk of this comes into play when you think about, again, that context. When they realize the system isn't right, someone asked Michael, where do you get your hope? And he said, what matters isn't if people are good or bad. What matters is if they're trying to be better today than they were yesterday. You ask me where my hope comes from, that's my answer. So he's saying that you can become more moral, where utilitarian, even if you made bad choices or selfish choices before, you can learn to become more moral. With utilitarianism, or at least the original utilitarianists, that context doesn't matter. It's, you make this action is the moral action that results in who you are. There is a risk of something called a happiness pump, however. This is illustrated by Doug Frissett, who is considered to be the most moral human. He's in the top image. You see him covered in different colors of lipstick, where he's testing lipstick on himself because he doesn't want to because he's trying to stop animal testing in cosmetics. If he steps on a snail, he has to send a ton of money to a snail rescue. He only drinks water from his own well that he filters himself and refilters his own urine. And all of these things, he's miserable, but he gets picked on, and he's like, it's okay that these neighborhood kids are like throwing rocks at me because it makes makes those kids happy. He's not worried about his own happiness. He just wants to get enough points to get into the good place. He knows what's happening after death. However, this runs a risk of causing more harm in the world, because if you're doing it for others only, but you're hurting yourself, then people see your suffering. It's obvious and you look miserable, and they're like, well, I don't want to do stuff for other people if it makes me that happy. And it actually winds up putting less good in the world. So for utilitarianism, there's like trying to strike this balance between inspiring others to do good, but also knowing that sometimes sacrifice doesn't look so great to others. So that balance between how do I decide what's best for others is pretty much a lifelong quest to figure that out. An example here could be something like, it's snowing, it's miserable outside. Most of us were stuck at home, things like that. And I could say, I want to stay warm. I want to stay comfortable. However, the driveway needs to get shoveled. And if I don't do it, my spouse or my kid are going to do it, and they're going to be sore. And so the utilitarian answer would say, regardless of how much I want to stay warm and comfortable and how much it's going to hurt me because of physical problems and things like that, I should be the one to shovel because I want to make these people happy, regardless of anything else. However, we have an offshoot of utilitarianism, or descendant of utilitarianism, called consequentialism, which is focused on the consequences of our actions, like it sounds. The right choice is what makes it better in the future. It's not worried about the past or what caused this choice. Context, again, doesn't matter. Um, we're not even focused on here and now. We're worried about not how can I make the world better today. It's how can I make it better in the future. Um, this is where the good places point system falls into play. If you look at the image at the bottom, here's a good thing you do, you get green points or positive points. You do something bad, you get negative points or those red points, and that takes it away. And how big or small an object, a choice is going to make how many points you lose or how many points you gain. But it doesn't take into consideration the unintended consequences because we can't read the future. We don't know what the future is going to be. I may think that making the right choice now is great, but what if the choice actually causes things to be bad in the future? We don't know. We don't know what the future is going to hold, so we can think that what we're doing is making something better in the future, but it doesn't. So let's say that I shovel that driveway. Means I can get out safely. My family can get out safely. We can walk down to check the, because we live on a hill, we can walk and check the mailbox and get mail safely. But I'll be in pain. Or what if I miss a spot and that spot of ice that unintentionally left visible or left uncovered from the snow that I shoveled off? What if that's the ice that someone slips on and they break their leg? My intention was good, but the consequence was negative. And again, it doesn't take into consideration people in our circumstances. Michael says the point is people improve when they get external love and support. How can we hold it against them when they don't? If someone's never taught selflessness, how can we expect them to be selfless? How can we punish them for being selfish? And when it comes to that point, when explaining like why no humans are getting into the good place all of a sudden, everyone's going to the bad place. He said it's because our lives are so complicated. It's impossible for anyone to be good enough for the good place. I know you don't like to learn too much about life on Earth, telling this to a judge who's supposed to be impartial. But these days, just buying a tomato at a grocery store means that you are unwittingly supporting toxic pesticides, exploiting labor, contributing to global warming. Humans think they're making one choice, but they're actually making dozens of choices they don't even know they're making. So consequentialism says that we should focus on that consequence, but we don't know what that consequence is, and we don't always have the information to know everything that goes into our choice. Our choices may be simple, but they're much more complex. What if the shovel I bought was the only shovel at the store and I didn't research the brand of shovel? And what if how that shovel is being made is causing the ecological systems to suffer? Things like that. What if I'm hurting the environment? All of these choices that we make, there are all these consequences that we should be focused on, according to consequentialists. However, we don't always know what they are, and a lot of them are unintended. Then we have something called a moral desert. It's spelled desert, but it's pronounced dessert. It comes from Plato. And it's this idea that if you live a morally just life, you deserve something in return, like some sort of reward. All good actions should come with positive reaction or response. But it questions the morality of that original choice. What if what I'm doing is good, but I'm only doing good because I want people to think I'm good? That is still a very selfish intention. Even if I am trying to say, look how amazing I am by volunteering or helping people, but it's just so people are going to tell me I'm doing a great job. Is that a moral choice? Is it a selfish choice? Is it better for the greater good? And what does that say about our morality? On the top right, you see Eleanor, who when she thinks that she's in the good place because of a mistaken identity, she is wearing the sash that says best person. It's this idea that we're like, this is great. However, on the other side, we see Michael saying, you're mad at me. And she's like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. And he's saying, everyone knows that's worse. In other words, we all want positive reaction from others. That's just human, and we're all human. But is that positive reaction the whole reason we're making moral choices? If I shovel the driveway, is it because I'm doing it to help others, my family, or because I want them to tell me that I'm doing an amazing job and I don't want to have to cook dinner or do laundry or any of these other things? I want them to volunteer to do these things because I did something else. reward. This idea, my kid cleans their room, they get an allowance. However, are they cleaning their room because they want a clean place to live, or are they cleaning their room because they want that allowance? And what is the moral choice there? A lot of these have a lot of wiggle room, and they're more thought experiments. Philosophy is very concerned with thought experiments because there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer. However, that's not always the case when it comes to Immanuel Kant, German philosopher. Often there is a moral. He says that there is the right choice and the wrong choice. Immanuel Kant comes up with the categorical imperative, which says that the supreme principle of morality is rationality. In other words, not emotion. He's not concerned with emotional responses. He's not concerned with feelings or context. It's if this is a right choice, this is always the right choice. The categorical imperative is an objective, rationally necessary, and unconditional principle that we should follow despite any desires or anything else we have that says maybe that's not the right choice. He acknowledges that we're not perfect, but we're still rational, and all our own specific moral requirements are justified by that. All immoral actions are irrational because they violate that categorical imperative. He's not concerned with context. He's not concerned with how we feel, and he's not even concerned with the consequences of an action. It's just living by these rules. Doing any action outside these rules is irrational. And if it's not rational, it means it's unethical and immoral. If something like lying is wrong, then it's always wrong, regardless of the context or circumstance. But is it better but if someone says, hey, what do you think about my new haircut? And you really don't like that haircut, is it better to say, oh, I hate it because it's crooked and it makes your face look funny or whatever? Even though that's causing pain, it's still the moral choice for Immanuel Kant. If we say stealing is always wrong to steal, then it's always wrong. No black or white, no gray, it's black or white. However, what if I steal this food to feed someone who's starving? Immanuel Kant would say it doesn't matter what the outcome, the act of stealing was still immoral. So when it comes to this, for him, morality is just deciding what are your guidelines, what are your life rules, or what are the rules of the society you're living in. And if you go outside of those rules, then you're not living a moral life, regardless. Is killing wrong? If killing is wrong, then it's always wrong. And that means that even if you're getting bit by a mosquito, you cannot smack and kill that mosquito. Because killing is wrong. That kind of thing. Then we have this doctrine of double effect, which I think is really interesting. Thomas Aquinas says that you can act in a way that has a moral side effect as long as you had positive intentions. If it has a morally bad side effect, it's still ethical because you didn't intend that bad thing to happen. However, there are some guidelines or rules. The act itself must be morally good or neutral. In other words, you couldn't have intentions of evil or wrongdoing. Your intentions had to be good. The person must directly intend the good effect, but only tolerate the evil effect. The good must be greater than or at least equal to anything negative, and the good effect must not be obtained by means of the evil or bad impact. Giving someone a car to help them out is moral, even if the person wrecks and gets hurt, because I didn't intend for them to get hurt. So it kind of absolves us of guilt. A hospice doctor can provide morphine and pain relief to someone, even if it may shorten their lifespan, because they're suffering. And we already know that they're going to die, that there hasn't been, like, we're not doing life-saving stuff here. However, if what's causing the patient to suffer is nausea, and morphine's not going to get rid of the nausea, it's just going to make them live a shorter amount of time, then that's not covered under that double effect. what's covered is only if it's something that gets rid of that suffering. So morphine for pain, if the person is a great deal of pain, is the moral choice in this example. But we still need to acknowledge that effect. It may kind of absolve us of guilt, but at the same time, we still need to acknowledge it and understand that this could happen, but this is the greater good. So it's not that black and white, this is good, this is bad, but what is less bad? What is less good? That kind of thing. We're going to put into practice with the trolley problem. I'm going to have you watch a video from the show following the trolley problem episode. Because it's, first of all, it's my favorite episode, but also because it's like a ethical, moral question that underscores a lot of different types of philosophy. So the trolley problem says that you're on a trolley and the way that you're going, you could hit, if you don't do anything, you're going to hit and kill 5 people. You can pull a lever to put us on another track, but then you're going to kill a person. What is the moral choice? Is it moral? But if you pull it, are you then responsible for that one person's death? But if you don't pull it because you're just already on the trolley, you're not the conductor. This is the path you're supposed to be on. Is that the moral choice? So where does that moral and ethic, how does that morality come into play? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you, and I'll put a better prompt in the discussion board, but I'm going to have you watch the prompt, watch the episode clips, and then you're going to have to decide, what do these different schools of thought, what do they have to say about utilitarianism, consequentialists, Kant's categorical imperative, the moral desert or the ethical desert or desert, double effect, all of those things. What would be the most moral choice in each of those? And then for you, if you were in that situation, what would you find the most moral choice and why? So yeah, that's moral philosophy in a nutshell. It's absolutely a complete quick run through of it because we're not a full-on philosophy class. And there are entire philosophy classes that are just concerned with ethics and morality. So yeah, that's it for today. I hope you have a wonderful time, and I'm really excited to see us again once we're safe and hopefully it's not so bitterly, miserably cold. See you soon. Bye.